asshole. Time to dance!
Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're talking about Death Battle's Champions Island. For those uninitiated, Death Battle does an annual membership-only event with their community every year, usually a tournament of sorts. That lets the community decide a matchup for the next season. Year 1 was a simple matchup poll between 2D and 3D ideas, with Cole vs Alex winning the 3D one and Bill vs Discord winning the 2D poll. Year 2 was a traditional bracket turn, ending with Tom vs Wiley. And Year 3 was a total drama island spook called Champions Island. My favorite of these events. Pick 32 characters, let the community decide the top 16, split those 16 up into teams of 8, and let the community go at each other across weekly challenges, with the losing team voting out 1 or 2 characters off of their team at once. It was fun, with a lot of funny moments and a whole lot of slander. Fittingly ending with the winner being none other than Kamen Rider Geats. A great way to end it, with him getting 4 matchups picked for him at the very end between the likes of Sephiroth, Nero, Liu Kang, and Bayonetta. We ended up getting Nero. Yeah, anyway, that's for a later time. But this begs the question, what if Geats didn't win and one of the other 31 characters made it to the end? What if the butterfly effect happened and we ended up getting one of them? Well, you read the title, so let's not dilly-dally. These are the matchups I would pick for the eliminated characters on Champions Island. I'm just going to preface this now and say that I'm not really doing these in any particular order. I'm just doing them based on which ones I like more. So if you couldn't guess, I don't really like Miku. I am not a huge fan of her music. I don't like that she was on this poll, and I find it extremely cringy. But regardless, I at least did come up with the effort to put matchups on here that just seemed interesting in my eyes, I guess. First up, Barbie. Very obvious one. I mean, this is the one that's been talked about a good bit. Second one, Hello Kitty. It's just the same with Barbie. It sounds really funny, too. And then the other 2 matchups I actually picked were music band related, and they're the complete opposite of Miku. First up is Iron Maiden. This one I think is the funniest one on here, just because of how fucking tonal difference it really is. Plus, I fucking love Iron Maiden. And then there is Disturbed. Disturbed is the other one that people have brought up numerous times. So I just said, why not? Just put it on here. But these matches ain't got shit on my goat, Big Band, who sells all y'all motherfuckers. Think fast, Chocolate! Yeah, I also just do not care about Homura being on Champions Island at all, to be honest. Her matchup spread is pretty simple when it comes down to it. Ino is the most obvious one, and one that a lot of people tend to push. If it gets Guilty Gear back on, fuck it. Then there's Sakuya, which is another really funny idea, because Sakuya was on Champions Island, so it leads to the question of, would Homura be on her poll, or... There's also the other 2. Strange Supreme is one that gets thrown around a good bit, and, you know, that seems alright. And then there's Karumi. Yeah, I'm sorry to the people who like this matchup. This isn't even like a bad idea either, from what I've been told. It's just that, yeah, I'm sorry for y'all. Regardless, it would still get on the poll. We're gonna get Magica at some point. It's just a matter of when. Bullshit! And the winner of Champions Island is Kamen Rider Geats. Sorry, this isn't the Keeley Awards. Fuck out of here. Outside of memes, again, I don't have anything to add to Mayo. To me, she just kind of exists as a void. But it was surprising Expedition 33 even got a spot in Champions Island, because looking for ideas with her was really, really hard. The only one I saw was Will from Metaphor Refantasio, which from what I've consumed of Metaphor, it seems like a neat idea. Then there's Kasumi. Rex was an option I saw, which, yeah, sure, why not? But wait, what about that 4th option? Kamen Rider Geats. Characters who won their competitions via rigged voting. No more community, just you and me, man to woman. Oh, God, what the fuck is this script?
Go throw yourself into traffic.
In spite of my hatred for my hero, I can actually accept the fact that Bakugo was a good pick for an event like this. The problem is, though, is that he's a character that's gonna get an episode next year, because next year they are absolutely doing Bakugo versus Reize. It's a simple idea and it can make for a good animation. It's a junk food episode. For other ideas, you gotta get the 2 classics on here, Genos and Shinra, both of which are so much funnier now that My Hero has ended, because he still doesn't beat either of them. And for all the new gens, Rexplode to coincide with Reize, because I've always been a true believer of Rex versus Bakugo. I am the Splodolite. Okay, that does not sound right, but you get my point. I fucking love this idea before it even got popular in the community. Oh god, poor Cyborg, man. He may not have finished dead last in the polls, but he definitely got that in the matchup pools. Because my brother in Christ, it does not get bleaker than this. Android 17, I think getting the one idea that was pushed around for a good while seems reasonable. Genos is another idea that gets tossed up a bit. And a small bit of overlay with Bakugo. Don't worry, there's very minimal of that in this video. I will say, even if I don't like these pairings all too much, some of these ideas could be good if they stuck with Teen Titans Cyborg. Since, let's be real, that's the one that everyone likes likes and knows. So I don't think it's sacrilegious to say Frankie could be cool if it was just Teen Titans Cyborg. But what if you want something that dives into the comic Cyborg? Well, look no further than Warlock. You thought this was all doom and gloom? Nah, just like the poop shitter texture phoenix he is, my man's Lofty came in to save Cyborg from good old hell. Warlock is a new mutant who was born as a bioorganic being that can control technology. That's pretty much all I know about him, but given what I've been told, it's debatable, and you know what? I'll take it over thing. On the complete opposite spectrum of this, we have Captain Underpants. Captain Underpants was a pleasant surprise, to say the least. If you're anywhere near my age, you would know how much of a staple his series was to mine and many others' childhoods. And thankfully, he has a decent matchup spread. Larry Boy and the Tick are my two favorites. The idea of Death Battle covering VeggieTales at all sounds insanely funny, and the Tick is one of those characters you just are wondering why they haven't done him yet. Maybe not to the extent of like Freakazoid or the Mask, but you get the idea. Like how you'd probably get why pitting Crump against a sentient toilet army is very fitting. I am genuinely angry at myself for coming up with Skibbity Toilet. It's so fucking stupid, but I can only hate myself for coming up with it because this now is probably the most likeliest of fucking episodes if Captain Underpants does get on, and I hate that. I hate myself so much. And finally, Handy from Panty is talking. Yeah, Crump, get it! Get that shit! TMNT is one of those series that you just look at and ask yourself, how the fuck do they only have 4 episodes? That's probably why Raphael was such a high priority to get onto the contenders list. Also helps that he has an insanely good matchup spread, mainly with Marvel characters, like Elektra, but I'm not putting her on my listing, even if some of the researchers had interest in doing that idea. Now, if I did pick a street tier, look no further than Ben Reilly, the Scarlet Spider. He tends to be the more prevalent street tier idea and tends to be more discussed overall in comparison to Elektra, but here's the thing, Ben Grimm. This idea is genuinely a perfect pairing in my opinion. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles vs. Fantastic Four is such an underrated pairing, and the fight starting on Yancey Street with the trench coats, perfection. Besides Marvel, Yang is obviously another option for pretty simple reasons, Ruby vs. TMNT. And then there's Inosuke, which I find to be really fun, and if I had to pick a non-Marvel character, I would pick Inosuke, because that dude is funny as hell, and the only redeeming factor to Demon Slayer. Ironic how Sukuna's #1 in verse, and somehow managed to get pushed all the way to the bottom and dead last amongst everyone. Yes, including Mayel and Cyborg. That's to be expected from one of the most anticipated characters for the show. The King of Curses has no shortage of ideas, and most are good. Then there's Muzan, and unfortunately, this is the most likely option of the choices. Shame. But that isn't going to stop me from praising Kishin Ashura. One of his most thematic ideas, and based on Death Battle stats, probably his most debatable. Another idea that mainly exists for fun is Ghost Free. The whole corruption possession thing is the main draw to this. But then there's my favorite, and one my friend Kaine introduced me to, Esdeath. Listen, I know people aren't claiming for a run back with her, but if you want a matchup that goes deeper into Sukuna's whole character, and has a unique discussion around it, this is one of his best ideas for that.
At least I'm taller than you.
I am so mad Edward literally turned up short in this event. I pushed this guy to get on because of how good his spread was, and I really want to see FMA back on Death Battle. But he got shafted by Freer. So you know what? Let Ed make her bite the curb. Okay, comedic anger aside, Joseph is a classic idea. You really can't go wrong with it. Its connections are very straightforward, and its fight dynamic sounds pretty damn cool. And one idea I've heard about, but I'm not really sold on, is Rudo from Gachiakuda. Yeah, it's a much newer idea, but from what I've seen of Gachiakuda, it sounds pretty neat. And to round it out, Harry Potter. Sorry, I couldn't even say that with a straight face, as if they would ever do Harry Potter again. We're never getting Gandalf Dumbledore. Since I brought her up, I might as well discuss Frieren next. Again, Edward is a pretty good idea for her. Not the greatest, but the easiest to digest for a Death Battle scenario. My favorite idea, and probably the most frequent one talked about, is Fushi from To Your Eternity. It's a very niche series, but the general theme of what it means to be mortal are a really cool comparison. It also might just be a stalemate, which is really funny. Ida from Owl House is an idea I've thought a bit on, and yeah, it just makes sense, but it's pretty weak for banter potential. But that's okay, because I've seen this before. Skips vs. Frieren has got to be the funniest idea for Frieren, and that alone makes me put it on here. I'm just gonna go ahead and speedrun through Steve's ideas since I've talked extensively in different videos about his ideas overall and how he just has a really good 3 set of matchups. Steve vs. Emmett, great pairing. Really like this idea, and it's probably the best way you're gonna get a Lego versus Minecraft matchup out of it. Minecraft versus Terraria, classic matchup. Probably the best for Steve outright, but you know what? It doesn't really matter because all 3 of his ideas are really good. And then there's Jonesy, which honestly is both very funny and very fitting. Being honest, there's not a lot when it comes to this idea. It's just a really cool matchup, and you know what? It would go really hard and probably get 50 million views. It's also probably the most likeliest of the Steve matchups now. And then for the 4th matchup, fuck it, we're just gonna put Henry on here because Ben talked about putting Steve versus Henry on if Henry did win Champions Island.
It's Slenderman!
I've been pretty positive towards it, but I'm gonna just be brutally honest with Slenderman here. He is one of the biggest coal picks I've ever seen. Actually, no, fuck the coal pick. He's a goddamn brimstone at this rate. I don't know what the hell people expected for a Slenderman poll. He has 2 legitimate matchups in the form of Sadako and Tall Man, and then what else does he have? A fucking Siren Head, and then Enderman? Yeah, you know what? Fuck it, because that 1-minute melee slaps really hard, and I know damn well Death Battle will never top that, ever, if they did it. Wait! I completely forgot about Slenderman versus Baldy. I'm sorry, I take everything back I said about Slenderman being on here. He is going, alright? He is going.
You wanna look at me and give?
Good old Willie Afton, the prime candidate for an event like this. It goes without saying that Afton has quite the extravagant selection of matchups, the main 2 being Chucky and Bendy. Chucky is a classic Afton idea and the one that I see them doing nowadays, while Bendy is a great new age idea and ironically has a pretty big cult following within the community. Another horror icon mostly tied to Afton is Mr. Elm Street himself, Freddy Krueger. Connections write themselves and Freddy is well overdue at this point. And lastly, Sans. Yeah, I'm not putting Juko on here. Sans is infinitely funnier anyways. Plus that Death Battle cast got me slightly interested in this idea. You know, you snooze, you lose. I think Pac-Man has my favorite moment from this event, and it is even related to him doing something cool. No, it's Steve hanging him out to dry in the Mugen event. Never in my life have I seen a violation on that level before. Motherfucker gave him the Captain America special. The Paxter has your standard go-to with Luigi, but also a classic pairing with Klonoa. Not a fan of it, but let's be honest, who is in the big 2026? You see more people pushing Felix than you would see them pushing Klonoa. Oh, hey, look. My preferred from all of this isn't even Luigi, but Bomberman. Since you can get the basic pairing by just saying classic video game maze runners, it's also humorous because of how high scale both get later down the line in their future adventures.
Say that again?
It always surprises me whenever I look into Reed's matchup spread, and just how flexible, pun intended, he is in a versus scenario. Pretty much all of his main ideas are good. O'Brien is your traditional Marvel vs. DC pairing, with Mr. Terrific becoming a staple combatant for him now that Superman made him mainstream. Both are great and do a good job filling a niche part of Reed's character. I personally prefer Terrific over O'Brien, but I'm not opposed to either one. Then you have Rick, which does make sense, and is probably his best idea out of the batch here. But after Rick vs. Doctor, there really isn't a need for a Rick run back. And then of course, to counteract Reed's genius level intellect, you pair him with the dumbest motherfucker possible, Luffy from One Piece. And I'm gonna drop a Sun God sized truth nuke here. This would have won if it was on the polls. The amount of anticipation Luffy has for an episode is insane, and the thirst for more One Piece cannot be quenched. And you know what? Luffy vs. Reed sounds pretty entertaining.
Best using the old loaf mutton jug.
I feel like as if DC got shafted in this event. Of all the characters they could have put on here with good spreads, Hal, Diana, Peacemaker, Blue Beetle, Brainiac, Shazam, they picked Cyborg and John, 2 characters notorious for having really middling spreads. John vs. Rhino has been pushed hard throughout the past few years, including by yours truly, but I've fallen off the hype train for this over the past few years, and to be frank, I actually really like Hellboy for John. It sounds cool, and I feel like Hellboy plying through all of John's summons could make for a cool fight. The Doctor is another preferred for John for me, just not in a Death Battle scenario for obvious and previously mentioned reasons. And it's at this point I was stumped for a 4th pick for John, since that's as far as this matchup spread goes. So fuck it. Roland Deschains from Stephen King's The Dark Tower, because occult-like vibes and detective shit. I have the same sentiment I said for DC with Jury, because why? Akuma was right there. He has a more diverse spread and is more heavily requested to come back since the disaster of Akuma vs. Shao Kahn. But I digress. Jury, simple enough. Melina, classic. Azula, Reina, a newer gen pick, and Surge. Sure. Really, you can replace any one of these with crazy bitches, and that'll be enough for a Jury idea to work.
Ken Carnegie.
I don't give a shit about Ken, even with his spread. I do agree that Tokyo Ghoul is well overdue at this point. I've shown a good bit of interest in Ken versus Aaron, but I've never been fully into it. Shinichi is an idea, but like, I'm more of a fan of Lucy versus Ken if I wanted an old head idea like that, but I'm also not that invested in a Lucy runback. The other idea I remember from all those years ago was Ganta from Dead Man Wonderland, and you know that shit is an old ass idea because when the hell was the last time Dead Man Wonderland was even relevant? Oh god, even bringing up that series, I can feel my fucking bones cracking. Shantae really does exist with their two ideas. Lilac is a thing. Yeah. Let's be real for a second. She's just gonna get curved by Shovel Knight because what else is there? Fulia from Skull Girls, I guess? And, Toon Link. Yeah, I'm really struggling to stretch this one out, so moving on. Flowey was very unexpected. I think out of all the options for Undertale reps, Flowey was the least expected. And by all options, I mean between him and Sans. Maybe Frisk too. But Flowey himself does have some form of a decent spread, but he tends to be the weakest between the two. Princess from Slay the Princess is the one pushed now for him, and is the only one with, actually maybe not the only one, but has a decent fight dynamic. Monica from Doki Doki is also pushed for some reason. Foreshadowing a bit for this video, Dementio doesn't even seem that bad on paper. And this last idea isn't even a Flowey idea, but an Azrael idea by Olante, because Omega Flowey clashing with her sounds kinda hype. Was a pretty good pick for this event. His spread varies, but I'd say most of his ideas are pretty neat. Gohan is okay. I've grown away from it since Ultraman Zero became an option, and also I think just Gohan has better matchups in general. Hercules is fucking hilarious, but such a tonal clash. So let's do it. Hot Rod I think is pretty alright if you want another Transformers idea, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't give a shit about Hot Rod. The one true Invincible idea that is my favorite is Spider-Man. Spider-Man I think is objectively his best idea from a narrative standpoint, since it goes into both characters way more than it should. Basically the deeper meaning behind both characters. I know some people will argue it's a scale issue, but Mark isn't built like that. He's not constantly blowing up planets, and scales like that are extremely rare and Invincible. Also, Mark tends to hold back a lot throughout this series, so much so that his fights are on a city-wide scale, similar to most Spider-Man and Street Tier comic scales. Plus, if they decide not to be pussies and go all out with Peter, it could be a lot closer. You see what I mean about Marvel having the better picks? Webhead and Reed are probably two of the best picks when it comes to the Marvel reps they could have offered. I've already gushed about Invincible, but there's also Koichi from Vigilante, aka My Hero but better. His powers can bounce out Peter's fast web swinging really well, and I think it's just leagues better than something like Miles vs. Deku. What else is there? Oh, right. Ladybug. I'm trying not to say certain things right now. It's very hard. You know what's funny? Despite this being a what-if poll, I think we can all agree on one thing for Peter's ideas. Just fucking do Batman. First Spider-Man, now Phoenix? Man, what is this, a fucking Marvel vs. Capcom video? Those yummy pixels. Phoenix is an example of one of those characters I look at for a death battle scenario and think, why? I get he's a popular character, but outside of joke ideas like Saul Goodman, why put this dude in a serious death battle? Whatever. As stated, Saul is the main one, even if he's also put against Edgeworth. Either way, Ace Attorney versus Better Call Saul. That one dude from Danganronpa, Makoto, yeah, him. Professor Layton actually seems pretty neat. It's been a hot minute since I've heard anything related to him though, but at least it's there. Okay, I know I just questioned putting Phoenix in a death battle scenario and that it seems really weird to do so, but if they do Phoenix versus Harvey Birdman, I will take it all back because Harvey Birdman is my fucking series, okay? Yeah, Dragon Ball rep was inevitable. Which one, though, was a bit of a coin toss. Nah, I'm just playing. It was always going to be Piccolo. Be real, Piccolo is the only one who has enough of a spread that warrant a spot on this event. What about Zamasu? Dread it, run from it, Saint Seiya arrives all the same. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah, Piccolo. Firstly, Knuckles. With Sonic finally getting a good episode again with Eggman, I have confidence they could actually make this a really fun episode. Shout out to my boy Electric for that animation. Magus is an idea for those who want that Chrono Trigger kick, but from what I've been told, Magus doesn't have a good way to bounce off of Piccolo's CQC. see. So, unfortunately, another Chrono Trigger Dragon Ball idea into the gutter. But two characters who can match his close quarters combat skills are Macaque from Monkey Kid and Dragon Shiryu from Saint Seiya. Macaque is a newer idea that a lot of peeps have been pushing, and from what I've seen from the Funky Monkey Lego show, I fuck with it. And Dragon Shiryu is one of those ideas that scratches that itch of Dragon Ball vs. Saint Seiya that exists within the community. Pretty much any of these three would make for good episodes. Frankly, I don't care which one he fights, just make sure he got that shit on Death Battle.
The baby.
Ah, Samus, origin of all and bounty hunter to us all. And girl, you need a run back. It's been over 10 years now since Samus was last on the show, and that is way too fucking long. Mega Man X has always been a cool idea and is the main one I'd be down for. It's not complicated, it's easy to digest, and it could make for a cool fight. Star-Lord is one of those Guardian that's really hard to lock in one idea down for, since he himself is a very strange character, but this idea could make for some fun dialogue. Then you have Nova Terra from StarCraft. I don't know much about her, but she seems to fit the archetype Samus is, so. Also, Death Battle. If you want to tap into an untouched market, StarCraft would do gangbusters for views. I guess I'll also bring up Firefly from Honkai. Mid. Just mid. But you got your cool armor.
Don't care, still don't care. I don't care.
You cannot run.
It would have been hilarious if Vilgax somehow snuck his way into the top 16, so that way we could have had a bounty hunter slash galactic warlord duality with Team Wiz and Boomstick. Perhaps in another world. Vilgax is my favorite surprise pick on this poll. The fact he was requested so much to where he got top 32 shows how much people not only want him on the show, but just Ben 10 in general. Shit, fan battle had to step up and do Ridley versus Vilgax first, which is the most likely option for him at this point, and makes the Samus thing even funnier. Hey, how do you know about Ridley? I shish kebabbed him for a Metroid. Another classic idea is Lord Dominator from Wander Over Yonder. The idea writes itself. Maybe we can avoid another career-ending pregnancy event for this time. Then we get to Megatron. Megatron is another really fun idea that is still better than fucking Frieza, that plays into the cartoon villain aspect of both characters. Though it isn't too deep connections-wise, it still has a lot of potential for interactions. Also, it's probably debatable now, so that's funny. But it's at this point I hit a snag for a fourth idea. So, when in doubt, Google. And lo and behold, Lord Zed. Yes, we're still waiting for Zeditor, but you can't say this idea doesn't have some thematics, like trying to steal a classic galactic super weapon. Rimuru, oh man, I'm glad you haven't fallen into the pit of ye old combatants list. Isekai is a genre a lot of people have been asking to get covered on the show for a while, and while Rimuru may be a bit much, I do think he would make for the best first rep, besides another certain skeleton that he just so happens to be paired with. Yeah, Ainz vs. Rimuru is just awesome. Overlord is one of my favorite animes, so you can take a guess how much I am thirsting to get Ainz on the show. A lot of people I've seen have also started pushing Komoko from the series, Yeah, I'm a Spider, So What? Which has a similar premise to that of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. Fucking saying these series on that is gonna drag this video out by an hour, man, I swear to God. And to be honest, you can fill out the last two with any isekai protag you can think of. Maple from the Max Defense isekai, and the dude from Shield Hero. Oh yeah, and I forgot about Kirby too. Yeah. Slime dude.
It is taking everything as an insult now.
Well, it was only a matter of time before we got to Mr. Round, Dark, and Brooding. Meta Knight falls into the same boat as most other characters on here, like Springtrap and Steve. Characters who have a huge list of ideas, and none that people can decide on. Some say they want him to fight Zero because of that 1-minute melee. That's some white bread shit. Some say Riku from Kingdom Hearts, which, I'm not gonna lie, I liked for a good while. But now, since I've become a better man, this idea is even whiter than Zero. But you know what? I shall accept both of their existences as a better man. Alright, now that's done, we can talk about Beta Ray Bill. Bill, I feel, hits a lot of the markers you'd want for a Meta Knight idea. The Scuttlebutt Halberd comparison, Wield Galactic Super no, I used that joke. Mythical and legendary kitchen utensils that choose who are worthy to wield them. And to be honest, you can argue that Meta Knight can bounce off a good bit of Bill. You can argue that Meta Knight can bounce a good bit off of Bill's kit, but let's be real here, we all know who would sweep this poll. My boy, Sparkster, cause we all fucking know that Ben would sneak this on there. So let's go, boys. Sparkster sweep. Top 3, and what better way to start with the luckiest duck, Henry. Mr. Stickmin conflicts me. I really like the Henry Stickmin collections. They're a huge part of my childhood, but at the same time, he has only one idea. Actually, wait, how could I forget? He has the second coming, the first coming, the third coming, and the fourth coming. Fantastic. Okay, but in all seriousness, they are just gonna do second coming now. Some other ideas include Paper Mario, with the two pulling random shit out of their ass to counter each other. There's Markiplier from A Heist with Markiplier, a mini-series that was made by Rooster Teeth in 2019. There's Warden, which was a pleasant surprise. The idea of Henry escaping super jail sounds really fun as a concept, but holy shit, I feel bad for whoever has to animate that, and say goodbye to any ad revenue for that too, because dear god. But the real question I must ask, can he beat the castle? I really shouldn't be surprised by Sakuya getting this far into the event. Toho has been requested for years now, and it just so happens to be the gateway animation into Death Battle for many people. But nostalgia aside for a moment, her spread isn't too shabby. Homura I mentioned, but I'm gonna skip that one for Sakuya. Remember, trying to avoid overlay. Death from Castlevania sounds funny as hell, and hey, I'm down for it. It gets more Castlevania on the show. Hit from Dragon Ball is also an option, and it mostly exists for a cool-ass Dragon Ball fight, and to get Hit on the show, because Hit has a really cool-ass power set. And you know what? It's not another Saiyan, so fuck it, we ballin'. Now remember what I said about Sakuya and Toho being a big reason why a lot of people got into Death Battle in the first place? Well, Dio is probably happening over all else. Not only is the 1 minute melee one of the biggest pieces of versus content ever, but an episode with Dio that can fully go into Over Heaven sounds pretty cool. And for the fourth pick, I don't know, the dude from Guilty Gear, Axel, yeah.
Hail to the king, baby.
Saving the best for last, Death Battle's golden boy and undisputed king of the event, Ash motherfucking Williams. Ash was the best character on this roster. His inclusion showed how much people really want him on the show, and the general push for him getting top 4 shows. There's a reason why they called him 007. 0 slander, 0 immunities, 7% on the polls. Hell, they had the vote stack to even get him out of the event, because he probably would have swept against Geets. On second thought, that probably would have been better than wasting Geets. But ignoring that, he really was a great addition. My favorite moment being during the voting round that got Miku and Slenderman out. He fucking mocked Slenderman and drew Miku in quarters. And then Geets came in and proceeded to hang Miku by the gallows right afterwards. You can't make shit up like this. Oh, right, we should talk about his matchups. Ash has such a diverse spread, you can basically pick any of them to make a good poll from them. Herbert, Frank West, Denji, Juliet, Finn Shepard, Joseph. Herbert is a classic horror pairing. Frank is a classic death battle pairing. Denji fits a chainsaw-sized plug in the brain of those who really want a chainsaw fight. Juliet matches a lot of those charms you'd get from an Evil Dead. Finn is fucking funny. And Joseph, well, Joseph vibes. Really, any of these can make for great ideas for a poll for Ash, and a fitting end to this video. Wait, what about Geets? Oh yeah, Geets is getting his own video. What? I was gonna try and fit his ideas into here somewhere, but after I did more research on his matchups that they picked for him, I'm gonna have to make a separate video for it instead, because I have a lot to say about his matchups. I'll also leave a link down below to a tier list maker if you want to make a tier list of the matchups that I brought up in this video. Anyways, what was your favorite character on the Champions Island poll, and who would you have them fight? Leave down below in the comments section. Anyways, I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.